good with y'all? What's good? What's good? Now, I want to come on here real quick and I just want to talk about micromanaging versus macromanaging. Now, over the course of the last few days, throughout my life, things have been good. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I'm not even gonna lie to you, bro. Things have been going well. Things have been good, but I find myself, you know, coming to terms with the idea of micromanaging versus macromanaging. Now, to get into it, we got to realize that as people, we have an internal reality, we have an external reality. And a lot of the time, because of what fear comes with, as people, we want to control everything. Okay, we want to control our emotions. We want to have an answer for everything. We want to know everything. We're nosy. Okay, but this is just simple human nature, and there's nothing inherently wrong with it. But the problem with that is that because of our fear-based programming, we always want to make sense of everything so that we can eliminate a problem. But what we must realize is that when it comes to problems are simply just mindsets. And that also goes with macromanaging and micromanaging. A lot of the time as people, we try to micromanage our entire life, and for what? A lot of the time, like, you got to really ask yourself, like, what is the point of me knowing this? Why do I feel like I need to know this? My soul doesn't really care. Nothing else cares. It doesn't influence or affect my life in any direct ways, but for some reason I still want to know why things are the way that they are. And a lot of the time it could cause a lot of internal conflict within the self. And this is speaking from a personal experience. I find that when I'm trying to micromanage every single situation or every single emotion, that I start to overthink a lot. Now, there's a huge difference between micromanaging and macromanaging. Micromanaging is trying to find answers to everything. Micromanaging is, degrading and invalidating yourself and how you feel just to make other people happy. One of my biggest challenges in life currently is that I find myself being not necessarily a people pleaser, but I find myself wanting to grasp every single situation to fit its narrative for my life. You feel me? And that causes me to have a lot on my plate, and sometimes it can feel very overwhelming. And I find that when I try to micromanage everything, I start to lose control of the situations that at hand. Our internal reality can and will and always manifest and influence our external reality. And because we try to micromanage all of our thoughts and our emotions, we start to manifest an external reality that's filled with chaos. As a self-aware person, it's very great to be self-aware, but don't become too self-aware. And what I mean by that is that there's no such thing as having too much self-awareness, but at the same time, sometimes you can be so self-aware about yourself, if that makes sense. You can be so self-aware about yourself that you literally start to ask yourself questions for the most dumb and little things that have no relevancy to your life and to your mind and to your happiness. Although you're omnipotent, although you're omniscient, you're omnipresent, you have to realize that you're bounded by a human mind, that you cannot control every single situation. There are things beyond the control of the human mind, beyond your direct life, and sometimes you can't control every single thing that's going on, because in the case that you would, what would life really be? What is character without adversity? I found myself having to justify every single emotion with a logical and rational response. And a lot of the time, bro, you have to realize that our minds and our emotions are very complex. We don't live in a black and white society where you're extremely right or you're extremely left. As humans, we are very complex beings. And a lot of the time, because we try to micromanage every single last thought that we have, we begin to fight ourselves internally. It's as if there's a battle between our head and our heart. You ever notice why when you get into a relationship or when you start to like somebody, you start to ask yourself, like, damn, do I like this person? Or what do I want to be with this person for? Do I like this person because of how they're treating me, etc., etc., etc.? But as a kid, remember, when you had a crush on a guy or a girl, it was simply you having a crush on them because you liked them. But as an adult or as somebody who's, becoming self-aware about themselves and is able to use discernment, we start to ask ourselves these questions that go against our natural God-given success. And we start to overthink every single situation and emotion and go against our authenticity. The goal of life, I say this in almost every single video, the goal of life is not just to be infinitely great, it's to be greater than infinity. And I say that because being greater than infinity is allowing yourself to be authentic and true to yourself. That's what it means to be greater than infinity. And being greater than infinity comes with you macromanaging as opposed to micromanaging. Now you may be wondering, what is macromanaging? What does it mean to macromanage? To macromanage means to be able to look at everything for the bigger picture, as opposed to trying to figure out and decode every minute situation and circumstance that's going on in your life. You don't always have to look at it from the inside out. It's okay to look at it from the outside in. It is just as important to have a good inlook on life as there is to have a good outlook on life. And a lot of the time, when you allow yourself to just take yourself out of the situation, if you pull yourself or extract yourself from a situation, you can see the bigger picture. The most important thing right now in the present moment, whoever is watching this video, the most important thing right now is that you are in your body, okay? You are an eternal soul or an eternal extension of consciousness and a third dimensional temporary body. You are not your thoughts, you are not your low vibrational emotions, and you are not any of the problems that reign amongst this world. So don't identify yourself with that. And I know I'm not the only man who can relate to what I'm about to say, but a lot of the time as men, sometimes we feel like we have to show up on every single occasion, even if that means, costing our mental health, our emotional health. As people, as men, we feel like we have to, always show up on time, even when we don't feel like it. We always have to put our best foot forward. And because we feel like we have to put our best foot forward, a lot of the time we begin to micromanage every external situation. We start to tell people that we love that, okay, yeah, I'm gonna show up for you, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna take you there, I'm gonna take you here. When in actuality, a lot of the time, we don't really feel like doing that shit because it's a lot to micromanage. And this could really go for anybody, not just men. It's very important that you take yourself out of the micromanaging state and put yourself in a macromanaging state. Because when you macromanage your reality, bro, you can actually start to disconnect yourself from this external reality that has been built for you, and you can go within and look within your internal reality. Like I said, bro, the most important thing in this life is self-awareness. Not too much self-awareness, but self-awareness nonetheless. Self-awareness is knowing when you're being too self-aware. Let me say that one more time. Self-awareness is knowing that you're being too self-aware and that sometimes you're asking yourself very logical and straightforward questions that don't even match up with how you feel as a person. Because of this state of internal conflict, we begin to ask ourselves questions and fight ourselves based off of the limitations of, questions in this logical thinking that we put upon ourselves. And in essence, that's what internal conflict is. Internal conflict is literally you fighting yourself, bro. There's no reason to fight yourself because in essence, metaphorically, you're always going to lose. You feel me? In order to get over this shadow side, if you will, in order to do shadow work, you have to embrace and accept every single part of yourself. And that comes with accepting yourself on all levels. Sometimes you gotta accept that, yo, I'm not cut out for this shit, bro. Sometimes you gotta accept, like, yo, I'm not ready to put myself in a position to be able to do that. Okay, self-awareness is being able to get in tune with how you feel. That doesn't go against your success, that doesn't go against your mental health, your spiritual health, your emotional health, and all aspects of your life. The same way that it's okay to put down that game, put down that hobby for the sake of you taking a break, is the same way that it's okay to put down that thought. And a lot of the time, when you hyper fixate on a thought, you tend to literally think yourself into circles to no end. This same thing that I'm talking about, micromanaging versus macromanaging, I had a moment of self-awareness. One day, I was busy and things like that, and I was thinking myself into circles, just overthinking, just, having a lot of internal conflict and things like that. And I realized, like, yo, and when I had this internal conflict, I didn't want to talk to nobody, bro, because I just didn't feel good within my own mind. But then I realized that, yo, this is not a battle. I'm not suffering. I'm not put on this earth to suffer. This is not anything that I can't handle, number one. And number two, this is a challenge. This is not a battle. This is simply just a challenge for me to be triumphant in. It's not a challenge to think more. It's a challenge to think less. It's a challenge to realize and become self-aware of why I am the way I am, why I'm thinking the way I think, and to be triumphant in that, and to stop doing that later on. So in closing remarks, when it comes to those situations, when it comes to what you're doing internally and externally, you have to macromanage. Stop micromanaging all the time. It's okay to look at things from the inside looking out, but in most cases, it's better to look from the outside looking in. Think about it. When you look at yourself from another person's perspective, or when you hear other people talk about you from their point of view, most of the time it's positive. They're telling you that you're doing more than enough, that you're on the right path, that you're doing great, and that you are amazing the way that you are. Why can't you think of yourself like that? The same way that someone else is thinking about you is the same way that you need to think about yourself. And they know that, yo, bro, you're doing too much right now. You're doing too much in your own mind. You have to embody this mindset of, yeah, sometimes I'm bugging out. And you really just have to realize, like, yo, some of the things that are going on in my life are not that serious. So simply macromanage, don't micromanage. But with that being said, I love myself to you. Have a beautiful, blessed, productive, and successful day. And remember, and like I said, the goal of life is not just to be infinitely great, it's to be greater than infinity.